Star Wars is back on the big screen with The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Gangsters, war criminals. I'll take out every bad guy in your deck of cards.
On May 22nd, feel the Force on the biggest screen possible.
The old protect the young, and the young protect the old. This is the way.
Buckle up.
Always wear your seatbelt.
The Mandalorian and Grogu. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. In theaters May 22nd. Get tickets now.
Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases. Unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online. And a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business. You'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
Everyone knows that unexplainable it factor, that smile that lights up a room, that wow. Well, it doesn't happen by itself. There's chemistry behind the charisma. Colgate Optic White Pro Series toothpaste removes 15 years of deep-set stains when you brush twice daily for 2 weeks. How? The clinically proven formula is powered by Colgate's hydrogen peroxide complex. It works at the molecular level to gently dissolve stains deep within the enamel where your brush can't reach. It's proof that daily routine can be remarkable. That's the science of wow. Colgate Optic White.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to this edition of There Can Only Be One, the podcast that puts together the all-star best of playlists of your favorite bands and artists. Hello to all of our listeners in Baldwin, Missouri, and around the world. How the heck are you guys doing? All right, are you ready for some really, really good rock? Because we're about to talk about a band that is, at one point, the biggest thing out there, and then went to criminally underrated. We're talking about Extreme, and here to join me, Lyle Robichaud is back on the show. Lyle, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Jason. It's always good to sit down with you and discover new things, because when we talked about this episode, I was the one that broke the news to you that I had never actually heard very much Extreme. So you pitched me this idea and have converted me into a fan.
So you're telling me that up to this point, your only real baseline for Extreme was the song that they parodied in The Love Guru?
Yes, and more than words. That was basically it, and I figured, one-hit wonders, you kind of throw them in the back of your mind, and they're one of those bands that, like you said, is so underrated that if you want to listen to them, you kind of go looking for them. They're not necessarily playing an all best of Extreme playlists on your radio stations, and there's no Sirius XM channel. But man, what a ride this was. I did this research on a 4-hour drive. So I had 2 hours to where I was going. And then after the show, I had 2 hours home. So I killed most of this in one go. And it was a conversion process. Starting out like, all right, let's see what I'm looking for here. Let's see how this is going to go. And by the time we get to like album 3, I am already a big Extreme fan. And by the end of it, I had a whole new respect for this era.
Nice. And by the way, dear listeners, if you have the chance to, Extreme will be hitting the road this summer with Motley Crue. So definitely go give them a chance. Go catch a show if you can. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through the full Extreme studio discography. That means 6 albums. As always, we're not covering any compilations or live albums, but we're also not covering any of their solo projects. So that includes Drama Gods, which featured Nuno Bettencourt, or Tribe of Judah, which actually featured Gary Cherone, Pat Badger, and one-time member Mike Mangini. We're sticking with just the Extreme discography. And we're going to start right at the beginning with their self-titled debut album, released March 14th, 1989. The band at this point is Pat Badger, Nuno Bettencourt, Gary Cherone, and Paul Geary. Hit number 80 on the Billboard 200. There were 4 singles off of this one. Kid Ego charted the highest, hitting number 39 on the mainstream rock charts. Your thoughts on this debut disc?
What a debut. What a powerful punch in an era where the hair metal and hair rock, glam rock, and stuff like that was starting to kind of go on the downswing a little bit from the heyday. As you know, as it's well documented on this podcast, I'm a huge Def Leppard fan. And wow, is this some of this very Def Leppard-ish coded with a little bit more edge. My pick from this album is the one that charted the highest and is the most Def Leppard coded in Kid Ego. But Smoke Signals was also so close to taking this spot. I loved this album. They do some things almost better than Def Leppard. When they slow things down and get acoustic, I find some of their offerings hit even harder than some of the bigger names out there.
You know what the funny thing is? You saw this a lot during the 80s and the 90s when the debut album comes out and it is everything they have to throw at you, because you have your entire life to write your first song, or at least your first album, and then you have to, catch up around, afterwards. Being very honest, I think their debut album, it might actually be the weakest album in their discography.
Completely agree. And how strange is that? How often have we talked about the, I guess, scientific formula of releasing music and how to get it correctly? And mostly it's so top heavy, right? Your first 3 albums are where all the kick is. And then it kind of, peters out as they go along and you get into the greatest hits territory. With these guys, it's almost kind of turned around on its head. And I'll get to what I mean by that a little bit later. But yeah, I would completely agree that the first album is still really good, but is one of the weaker offerings for, generational hits, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on my shortlist, I had Wind Me Up, Teacher's Pet, and Play With Me. But
Teacher's Pet's amazing.
My pick off of this kind of stems back to something that was said when Extreme performed at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert, which if you have not seen that performance, Extreme basically pulled a Live Aid and stole the show by doing like the ultimate Queen medley. But it was Brian May who introduced them at that show. And he said that the band was one that really understood what Queen was all about and what Freddie was all about. And, going back to that, at the time, I'm like, really? The More Than Words band this is what they're talking about? But then you start to hear some of the songs and you really deep dive the discography and you're like, no, it makes total sense. So when I say my pick is Rockabye Baby off of this is the one that actually is the most Queen of everything on the disc. The harmonies, the outside the rock box kind of songwriting, and Nuno's solo on this. Like, no one needs to sell Nuno Bettencourt as a guitarist. They don't need to. Nuno has sold himself as a guitarist over and over and over again. Just ask Rihanna, because that's who he's been backing on the road. But this is so out of left field. And you think about it, 1989, right? So just before grunge really hits, and you're still coming out of the glam rock era, and then we're like, no, we're going to sound like Queen and put this out there. There's balls in writing a song like this and putting it out in 1989.
You're right. And that's, I think, what I wasn't expecting when I started listening to their discography was the range. We've covered a lot of bands that have a lot of range. You'll have a song here and there that really steps outside the box and does something a little bit different. And usually that hits really well with us. But these guys, it's like track to track. You kind of don't know what you're getting. And I love it because it's very difficult to execute that. It's even harder to have it land.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys do a really good job of it. They are all over the map on most of these albums with tone and inspiration. Some of their stuff creeps into country later on. And it's so interesting to see a band that kind of like embraces this much variety.
Yeah. I mean, you also take a look at the discography of someone like Alice Cooper, where you are never going to get the same album twice. That's the thing you get with Extreme. You're never going to get the same album twice, and you're definitely not going to get the same sound throughout the album. They are completely diverse in their songwriting. Their harmonies are able to pick up on pretty much everything, and every single member of the band is a legendary musician in their own right.
Yeah, they've all gone on to do crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, the Rihanna connection, like they've all kind of branched out and have touched many different genres of music. I don't know how these guys flew under my radar for so long. I'm almost ashamed of myself as an audiophile to be sitting here and going like, I didn't really know any of this. And of course there's hundreds of people that'll listen to this and be like, how did you not know this? But I don't know. I guess it was just outside of my bubble.
And that's the thing too. Sometimes a band is there and you're like, how did I never listen to this? I mean, everyone heard their next album, of course, because of one certain song, but it's the other albums that don't necessarily get listened to. maybe you fall off after like the third album or something like that. And then you're like, oh, wait, they're still putting out music. That's the thing. Never stop following your band. I know people go through this phase where it's like, you stumble onto a band and you love what they put out, then you binge everything. And then that's all you listen to for like 2-3 years. And then you kind of fall away for a little bit and you move on and you come back to them somewhere down the road. It's like, oh, wait, they were still going. Where was I?
Yeah, it's true. And I think it's also because there are unfortunately so many bands that pump out a lot of material, and I'll say the quality doesn't necessarily stay at a baseline. Sometimes they do this. I'm going to use one of my favorite bands of all time as an example. AC/DC. They were still putting out music as of last year or the year before they put out a brand new album. It's still the same flavor of stuff. It's still all the stuff that you want to get from AC/DC. So if you're a fan, I don't understand why you wouldn't keep up with it, because even on the newest album, there's good stuff there. The Black Keys is another example. I'm a big fan of theirs. They release a lot of stuff, and it's sometimes experimental and weird, but it's fun to go along for the ride.
Yeah.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs, so you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Next up is Extreme 2 Pornograffiti. Released August 7th, 1990, the album hit number 1 in Canada and number 10 on the Billboard 200. It is triple platinum in Canada, double platinum in the States, and platinum in the UK. There were 5 singles off of this one. One you might have heard of. More Than Words charted the highest, hitting number 1 in Belgium, Canada, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Billboard Hot 100, and was probably everyone's wedding song in the early 90s. At the 34th Grammys, More Than Words was nominated for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal, but lost to Losing My Religion by REM, and I don't hate that.
That's a tough one to beat right there. I love REM, so that is understandable, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. Like, you take a look at both of those songs, and they're both kind of different from each other, both superior in their own rights. That's a knockdown, drag out fight between the two.
It really is. And it's the same kind of like, yeah, both very haunting in their own ways. It's strange how they were both up in the same category in the same year, because that's a heavyweight title fight for sure.
All right, so off of Pornograffiti, what did you go with?
I didn't pick More Than Words. I'll tell you that.
Shortlisted at least.
It's shortlisted. Of course it's shortlisted because it is a generational song and it's in Hallmark commercials to this day and will be forever ad infinitum. But it's Get the Funk Out. It will always be Get the Funk Out. I love a driving chorus. Get the funk out. Like, that is a driving down the road, listening to the radio, banging on the steering wheel to the drumline song. It stands out. It is so good. It's an example of the kind of the hair metal that they were, trying to encapsulate in their first album's cover anyway. Like, it matches their look. There's a lot of stuff on here that's really good. I also really liked When I'm President because, again, it shows that range. There's a lot of really long intros to their stuff as well before, like, the actual meat and potatoes of the song kicks in, which is a lost art form in itself. But Get the Funk Out just stuck with me earworm-wise for so long that it could not be my pick.
Yeah, they're kind of one of the glammiest, flashiest prog bands out there with some of their long intros.
That's a really good way to put it. There's some rap mixed in here somewhere. Like, there's all kinds of inspirations that they drew from, and you can tell.
Yeah, and yeah, Get the Funk Out is my pick as well, but not necessarily for what I normally go for in Extreme. Yes, the harmonies are always on point. Yes, Nuno's on point. Pat Badger on bass. This is the funkiest freaking bass line. It's so good. And that's, if you really listen to Pat Badger's bass lines, like, of course, we talked about him before. Phenomenal guitarist. World-renowned guitarist. Gary Sharon, vocals for days. Pat Badger. Those bass lines are so complex underneath, but when they come out front, they get even better.
And I think it had to be, right? If you name a song, Get the Funk Out, you have to have some funk in there. And funk is like 85% bass line.
Oh, yeah.
You get down to the nitty gritty of it. And that just shows they understand the kind of undertones that they pull from. When they go to country later, I'll talk about it as well. But I had that written down for Get the Funk Out as well. It doesn't just call itself Get the Funk Out and then have like a little melody in there. It has funk undertones. There is musicianship thrown behind it to be like, okay, this needs to sound like a funk song if that's in the title. Like it's professionalism here. I'll repeat it 100 times, but I just can't believe I'd never really given these guys a fair shake before you threw them my way, because another album cover to cover where it would be very difficult to do a spin shuffle skip on this because there's not a lot of skip.
No, not the slightest. I mean, I had Decadence, Dance, More Than Words, Wholehearted, and Song for Love on my short list. But yeah, and every single off of this album was killer. Wholehearted really had a fight for the pick. But
Wholehearted was on my short list. When I'm President, More Than Words, obviously. I even liked It's a Monster. Like there's nothing that I would look at and go, I wouldn't listen to that again.
Yeah. Little Jack Horny is also kind of fun as well, because they really leaned into the horn section on this.
They did.
3 Sides to Every Story, released September 14th, 1992. Hit number 2 in the UK and number 10 on the Billboard 200. It was platinum in Canada and gold in Japan, the UK, and the US. 3 singles off of this one. Rest in Peace hit number 1 on the mainstream rock charts. All right, so 1992 is here, and grunge is pretty much knocking on the door, and they go with almost a proggy kind of album to put out there. And it's almost like they avoided the idea of, well, More Than Words was a big song, we're going to need another More Than Words. It's almost like they pulled further away from that as much as they could.
And in the process, created the best album on the list so far in my mind. I love 3, and I think it's just fantastic, both for the variety and for the exact thing you said, because I had the exact same written in my notes. They could have very easily bought a bunch more acoustics into the studio and said, okay, More Than Words, we need to do this 4 or 5 more times, collect $200 for pass and go. And they went in the equal but opposite direction. And I love that. I love the kind of bucking tradition. And there is so much quality on this album.
I mean, it also makes sense to feel a little bit more okay with going in a proggy direction, because in 1992, you're just 2 years away from Queensryche's Empire, which made a massive splash. And of course, their single Silent Lucidity, which was the most Pink Floydian Pink Floyd that wasn't written by Pink Floyd. And yet it was Grammy nominated and being, I think it was one of the viewers' choice at the MTV VMAs in 1991. Like it's okay to prog a little bit. Remember too, Dream Theater is also out around this point as well.
And it's also 1992, so everything is experimental with a capital E. This is how so many kind of monumental genres spun out of this time period, is because it was a time period where people were just throwing whatever they could at the wall and seeing what sticks, and birthed so many things. This album tried to birth 5 or 6 different things with the different directions they go in here.
All right, so off of 3 Sides to Every Story, what'd you go with?
One of my new favorite songs, Rest in Peace. What a generational banger this is, from the violin intro to the absolute driving chord. It's just perfect. It's perfect in every detail, as Homelander would say. It is perfect down to the last iota. It's the second song on the set list, so we've talked at length about our scientific formula for making the set list of the album. Warheads didn't have me. Rest in Peace, I was like, there's not going to be anything on this that beats that, unfortunately. And I was right for the whole way through. Color Me Blind was on my short list. I also like Tragic Comic, was a little bit just weird. but I did enjoy it. Everything on here is good, but Rest in Peace is tip of the iceberg as of now.
See, when I'm taking a look at this album, of course, they released it quote unquote as a 3-sided album, just to kind of get out there. It was basically broken down into almost like 3 suites. The first suite being like yours, the second suite being mine, and the third suite being the truth. I found more of my my shortlist picks came from that little 3-song section that was the truth, because Am I Ever Going to Change and Who Cares were both kind of in my my short list, as well as Political Calamity, which is the song right after Rest in Peace. But yeah, I went with Rest in Peace because, again,
how can you not?
Right? But tell me, as you're getting, going through the song, you're like, okay, the harmonies are good, the song is good. You get to the end of the bridge, and all of a sudden there's that little Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze guitar tease in there, and it's like, oh, you did. You teased it, didn't you?
You did. You just pulled the rug right out from under us. It's interesting. I didn't know about the 3 stages of the album. I did not know that, but you can kind of hear it. Now that I have you can kind of see how there's a bit of a story being told there without outright it being a rock opera.
Yeah. I mean, they basically, wrote, concept albums that weren't necessarily out and out concept albums, but I mean, concept albums do work if you want to put one out there. And this is the band that could definitely pull it off.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because every album is a pseudo concept album in its own way.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Waiting for the Punchline. Released January 19th, 95. We have a member change at this point. During the making of this album, Paul Geary left the band and went on to do artist management. Coincidentally, one of the first artists that he signed was Godsmack. Replacing him was drum sensation phenom Mike Mangini, who played drums on Hip Today, Leave Me Alone, and No Respect. This, of course, before Mike Mangini replaced Mike Portnoy in Dream Theater. The album hit number 1 on the UK rock and metal charts and number 40 on the Billboard 200, and is gold in Japan. There are 4 singles off of this one. Hip Today hit number 26 on the mainstream rock charts. And I know this is like a period of transition because, shortly after making this album and, a little bit of touring, Nuno basically wanted to go do a solo album. Gary Cherone ended up joining Van Halen after this. So this is definitely we're going to take a pause after this album, but there's some good stuff on this disc.
This is tied with 3 for my favorite album by them.
Yeah.
You hear the midst post grunge influence in there. There's almost some Foo Fighters flavor, if that makes any sense. I had a lot of fun listening to this one cover to cover. This one and 3, there's that era, I guess, of era of extremity.
Mm-hmm.
And this is picture perfect for me. This was very difficult to pick just one, especially when one of my favorite songs on this album is Midnight Express.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just acoustic mastery of a guitar. It's hard not to pick that, but I felt like that's a bit of a cop-out, so I had to go with Hip Today. Very, very, not very often, the best song from the album is the one that charts the highest. Like, neither of us picked More Than Words as our pick for the album, yet it's, top of everything. This is one of the times where it got it right. I think Hip Today is the best song on the album. I'm glad that it charted well. But Hip Today, Midnight Express, No Respect, Shadowboxing. There's so much good stuff on here.
Mm-hmm. And if you listen to Hip Today, you're really going to notice the Mike Mangini influence. This was one of the songs that he did play drums on. Now, Mangini is known for using his cymbals a lot. And you hear that difference because Gary is very much a straight ahead, he's got some funk influence to him, but doesn't live on the cymbals as much. Mangini loves his cymbals. So you're hearing a lot of that in the background, and the drum line is very complex. And the song was on my short list. I also had There Is No God, Cynical, and Unconditionally on my short list. But you mentioned it. I'm going with Shadowboxing.
Right? It's so good.
Yeah. And again, this is another one where I have to sit there and praise Pat Badger for his bass work. But this is just some stank face blues riffing from Nuno. Like, and the chorus is fantastic. There's a great chord change in the second half of the chorus. That's really, it's ear candy for me. but it's that almost blues riffing that Nuno is putting in here. And we didn't really hear much blues in the first 3 albums. Yet here, this feels like you could hear it in a blues bar.
Yeah, 100%. And me and you did the Alice in Chains episode. This feels Alice in Chainsy at certain points too.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just so much that there's pieces of everything in here, and they build it all up to make their own thing. I love it. I've never heard of a band like this where every single track has its own distinct identity, and they all work. There's never, oh well, this is outside their wheelbox, so I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. It always seems to hit with them. It's quite impressive.
Next up, after a 13-year disappearance, is Saudades de Rock, released August 12th, 2008. We have a member change now. Kevin Figueredo is now on drums. The album hit number 9 on the Billboard Indie charts, number 12 on the Hard Rock charts, and number 78 on the Billboard 200. There was one single off this one that did not chart, that being Star. This is a fantastic return. Like, after 13 years away, too, like, the absence didn't dim them one iota.
No, and they continue to do exactly what they did before they left, because this is also an extreme departure from Waiting for the Punchline. Very much kind of like a softer, more acoustic leaning tone.
But I mean, you take a look at, the time away, and Nuno's doing guitar work for other people. It had to be a weird experience for Gary Cherone being in Van Halen at that time and putting out an album that most Van Halen fans will sit there and say, yeah, that's probably the worst Van Halen album out there. And it's nothing against Gary Cherone. It's just like nothing was firing on any cylinders for, in the Van Halen camp at that time. I'm so glad that Extreme came back and they were able to showcase again just why Gary Cherone is one of the most underrated singers from his era.
It's true. It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to go away for any length of time, let alone for as long as they did.
Mm-hmm.
And then come back with something that at least resembles your heyday, your former self. So to come back and, like I said, still stay in your lane of making everything interesting and exciting and different and hit it's difficult to do on the best of days, let alone when you've been gone for how many years, right? Like,
yeah,
it's admirable. Do I think this is the strongest album in their catalog? No, but it's still completely serviceable and good. The baseline good.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't say it's a throwaway either.
Yeah, it's still, to me, better than their debut album. But
Yep.
I mean, you're grading on Extreme level, and that's kind of hard to beat from a musicality perspective.
And a complete package perspective as well. When you have so many albums in your catalog that are, cover to cover so good and serviceable and different, everything there's a pressure there, I guess. You back yourself into a pressure corner, and then you add in, the added variable of having been gone for so long and having, people go off and do their own things and then circle back and come back. It's hard to recapture the magic in the best terms, let alone when you have such a high pedestal for yourself.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of Candlebox, where they came out, they had the 3 albums, and then they went away for a bit, and then after a while and, some side projects down the road, Kevin Martin comes back, and Candlebox is putting out some of the best albums of their career. So That's the Rock isn't the best album of Extreme's career, but it would definitely be the best album for someone else's career, that's for sure. But
Yes.
off this album, what would you go with?
This is where they dipped their toes into some country stuff a little bit, and I think it lended to them very well. So my pick off of this is actually Take Us Alive. I loved the acousticality of it. I loved that it was basically a pseudo country song with some sprinkles of other stuff on it. I loved it. I was really surprised by it because it's surrounded by some very interesting harder stuff, like Run is right beside it, and that was on my short list. I also liked Flower Man. Ghost was good too, but I kept going back to Take Us Alive, and I listened to it twice actually. When I was done the album, I went back and listened to it again. And I was like, no, this is great. This would fit on so many of the country stations that I listen to at this point, and it would chart well today. So I think it's a really interesting kind of like diversion from all the other picks that I have on here. And I think it's really good.
See, you basically listed my entire short list. I had Take Us Alive, Run, Ghost, and Comfortably Dumb on my short list. But the song that I'm going with is actually something that hasn't been mentioned yet. I'm going with Interface off of this one.
Okay.
I know More Than Words exists. I know Wholehearted exists, but I think this is actually my favorite acoustic song from Extreme. And a lot of it really boils down to, yes, the harmonies, of course, but almost the restraint in the soloing. Like Nuno Bettencourt can hit every note and then some in 0.7 seconds. We know this.
Yes.
So to pull it back and just lean into like a soulful solo in a song like this, and it's so good and so very live sing-alongy.
Yeah, and I think actually that's a good way to describe this whole album. I think it's very like sing along. They're like it feels more. I'm going to compare them to Def Leppard again, but it does lend itself kind of almost to like the later career Def Leppard, where it is kind of more a softer, more like harmonic sound to it and less of the experimental to it, which is not a bad thing, especially at this point of their careers and for a comeback album. It works for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then 15 years later, you get one more album, 6, released June 9th, 2023. Hit number 2 on the UK rock and metal charts and number 67 on the Billboard 200. There were 7 singles off of this one. None of them actually charted, but holy crap. When the video for Rise came out, I was blown away by just how good it was.
This whole album, it's funny how history repeats itself because it feels like they circled back to the late 80s and they were like, okay, let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's be as stereotypically late 80s as we could possibly be with an album, because that's what this feels like. This feels like the late 80s hair metal debut album that should have came out in place of their first album.
I mean, I can easily see that. I mean, the gloves are off. This is a band that knows that they can do whatever the hell they want because the people are going to be there. The Extreme fans are going to be there. There's no record companies hovering over them and saying, you have to put out this single and you have to do all this. No, they're at that we're going to have fun for fun's sake kind of stage of their career. And I love that for them.
And that's exactly what I put in beside this album's name. This is just sheer 80s hair metal fun. It is popcorn theater. It's fantastic for that respect. And that's why my pick off this album is Banshee, because that is the most 80s sounding, like I said, hockey dressing room. You're driving down the road and you're slapping the steering wheel along to it. Super fun.
So you know what we need to get you for your car?
What?
Because you keep talking about steering wheel drumming. I'm with you on this. I'm with you on the steering wheel drumming, which is why I now have the cymbal for my vent in the car. So I can now do the drum solo and have a cymbal crash at the end.
Cymbal. You have to have all the tones in there. You need a foot pedal now instead of a clutch.
It's called the gas pedal. It's like, no, it's not a bass drum. What? Why is the car like jolting and,
you're going down. Yeah. The guy behind you is just absolutely livid.
That's what I need to put like a double pedal on the gas pedal.
Just have like a entire rock band setup retrofitted onto your dashboard. That doesn't count as distracted driving. You're listening to the music and you're zoned right in. I don't think that counts as distracted driving.
I'm not distracted. I'm right into the song. Oh, you mean the road. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm on expert right here, sir. Do you understand what I'm doing? This is the Rush expansion pack. I am losing my mind right now.
I'm not going to Neil Peart my way down the highway. That's not a good thing for anybody. All right. It's funny you mentioned Banshee because that actually did not even make my short list. I had Rise, #Rebel, Small Town Beautiful, Thicker Than Blood, Hurricane, and Here's to the Losers. Like I basically just could put the entire album on my short list.
Here's to the Losers was on mine, and my other short list for this was Other Side of the Rainbow. But Here's to the Losers was my 2 next to Banshee.
Okay, well now you just stole my thunder because Other Side of the Rainbow is actually my pick off of this. This is like almost a cross. You were talking about big hair metal. This is to me a cross between Boston and Mr. Big.
Yes, it is very Boston-y. That's so true.
Like the acoustic picking, the big chorus, the harmonies. Like there's a reason why groups like Mr. Big and Boston and Def Leppard were huge. And their songs were like, still to this day, played in between sets at other people's concerts because they are that big. But this was a real knockdown, drag-out fight between Small Town Beautiful and Other Side of the Rainbow. Small Town Beautiful also kind of lives in that country vein a little bit.
It does.
But Other Side of the Rainbow just feels like the song I want to see them play live. And that's always the big thing for me, because Extreme is on my bucket list of bands to see live. Have not had a chance to see them yet. Maybe when they're on tour this summer with Motley Crue and Tesla.
Have they announced the dates for that yet?
They have. The dates are available on their website. Tickets are now available. So if you do want a chance to go see Extreme, go hit them up. But now comes the time. So Lyle, remind our listeners what your 6 picks are from the Extreme discography. And if there can only be one Extreme song, what is it going to be?
You know, a lot of the times this is very difficult. But through the course of listening to this over one night, this was very easy as soon as I found the song. As soon as I hit the song, I was like, oh, that's it. So Extreme, the first album, was Kid Ego. For Porn or Graffiti, it was Get the Funk Out. For 3, it was Rest in Peace. For Waiting on a Punchline, it was Hip Today. For De Rock, word I can't pronounce, it was Take Us Alive. And for 6, it was Banshee. And it's Rest in Peace. It's Rest in Peace is the pick. If you are going to listen to only one Extreme song, you would think that the thought process of this show was we are going to give you one song to listen to if that's the one that's supposed to hook you in. If I love Extreme, I want you to listen to Extreme. Here's 3 minutes of your life, and this is going to sell you on this band for the rest of your life. It's Rest in Peace, because it did for me. That was the up that kept me going through the discography, because I was like, this is a generational song.
And also, dear listeners, if you do want to get a taste for what we're talking about, on our website, notthatbadcast.com, on the episode page of the episode that you're listening to, the Spotify playlist of the songs that we have picked are on that page. So if you want to say, hey, I'd love to hear the song they're talking about, guess what? That song is on that playlist. So by all means, go to our website, notthatbadcast.com, and check out the episode page. All right, for my picks. From 1989's self-titled debut album, I went with Rockabye Baby. From Porn or Graffiti, I went with Get the Funk Out. From 3 Sides to Every Story, I went with Rest in Peace. From Waiting for the Punchline, I went with Shadowboxing. From Saudade de Rock, I went with Interface. And from 6, I went with Other Side of the Rainbow. And I'm going to go, pardon the pun here, with my baser instincts, I'm going to go with Get the Funk Out. Because this song is ridiculously funky. Pat Badger. I know there are bassists out there that get all the cred and all the acclaim and all the hoo-ah. Pat Badger, just let me say this straight up. You are bass badassery personified. All your bass work is fantastic, especially this song.
As soon as we got to talking about the bass line on it, I thought that's his pick. It's got to be. I know you're a sucker for the art that is slapping the bass. So I said, with the funkiness and stank face that is the levels of stank face we were achieving here, it's got to be Get the Funk Out.
I mean, Shadowboxing was definitely giving this a run for its money because of the stank face guitar work from Nuno.
For me, hilariously, Banshee, the closest one to Rest in Peace, would maybe be my pick off of 6. Which is crazy to think of, that a band, More Than Words came out 20, 30 years ago. But I would put Banshee up there probably with their best work. I think the 6 album was really good.
Oh, yeah. No, you really can't go wrong with that. But then you also go back and you realize how old some of these albums are. And I love that this band is constantly seeming to get better and better with each and every album, even if we got to wait a decade and a half for an album. Hey,
Extreme age is like fine wine, and it's difficult to say. I don't think we've covered a band like this. It's really cool that you threw this at me and recommended this discography, because we haven't really covered anybody that keeps that quality up here. We've covered a lot of bands that have spanned decades, but it's really difficult to find one like this where every album, there was never a time listening to all this where I was bored. Where it felt like I was doing homework, or it felt like I was like, okay, let's get through this. Every song, I was like, what is this going to be? Like, what new crazy thing are they going to throw? I was waiting for a pan flute to show up, or some random experimental, and all of it worked.
It's not Jethro Tull.
stream playing in the Shire.
Do 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 do.
All
All right, Lyle. Thank you so much for this. Please let our listeners know what you're up to and where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
I am still with Anthem Sports and Entertainment as a producer, so watch your TNA Wrestling every Thursday night.
All right, and dear listeners, you guys know the drill. If there is an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, or an album that you want us to cover on Spin, Shuffle, Skip, hit us up on social media at Only One Cast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the website so whenever we put up a new episode, you get notified immediately. Until next time, he's Lyle, I'm Jay, you guys are awesome. This is There Can Only Be One, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.
Hey, Mama. Thanks for making all my favorite recipes.
Hi, Ma. Thanks for your unfiltered advice.
Hi, Mom. Thanks for always being by the phone.
Hey, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
When you ship UPS Air at the UPS Store, your items arrive on time or your money back. Guaranteed at no extra cost. Exclusively at the UPS Store U.S. retail locations. Visit the upsstore.com/airshipping for full details. Terms and conditions apply. Send your Mother's Day gifts at the UPS Store and we'll get your gratitude there on time.